Hello everyone. Let's find out the difference between food chain and food web. First of all, to understand this difference, let's have a look on some major differences and a intro of food chain and food web. So basically, whenever any organism is dependent for food on other organism, then later on that organism is also eaten by some other organism. That whole process is known as food chain. For example, suppose grass is eaten by grasshopper, and then later on the grasshopper is eaten by frog, and then frog is eaten by any snake, and later on the snake is eaten by eagle. Then that condition is known as food chain. And when we talk about the food web, then in this case different type of food chains are interconnected. That's make a food web. Now let's have a look on some major differences between these two. First of all, we are talking about the food chain. So in this one, it refers to a natural system by which energy is transmitted from one organism to another. So basically, one organism is eaten by another one, then that organism is also eaten by another one. So basically, it is transferring or transmitting the energy from one organism to another organism in the form of food. That is known as food chain. Now, if we talk about the food web, then in this case, it consists of a number of interconnected food chains. In this one, different food chains are present which are interconnected with each other. Now, in case of food chain, the members of higher trophic level feed upon a single type of organism only. So here only a straight, or we can say a single path is there, that one organism is eaten by another one, that then another one is eaten by any specific another one organism. While in case of the web, here we know that the members of higher trophic level feed upon many organisms. For example, you can understand the thing here, that grass can be eaten by grasshopper, that grass can be eaten by rabbit, and the same grass can be eaten by the deer. Now, the deer can be eaten by lion, the deer can be eaten by tiger. Similarly, that grasshopper can be eaten by frog and can also be eaten by some other kind of organism. So here there are different types of food chains which are interconnected. There is not any specific thing that only this organism can be eaten by only this organism. Here interconnected, we can say, web is present. That's why the name is food web. Now in this one we can see that it basically, in case of food chain, it does not have any effect on improving and adaptability and competitiveness of the organism, because it is a single path basically. But in case of the food web, here it improves the adaptability. For example, we can understand the thing here. Suppose the grass is eaten by grasshopper, then later on that grasshopper is eaten by the frog. Now may be possible, if the number of grasshopper is less, we can say, then the frog can eat any other organism. So it is not only dependent on the grasshopper, it may be possible that it can eat some other kind of insect. That's why in case of food web, here it improves the adaptability and competitiveness as well. Here also a person, or we can say any organism, can survive more easily in case of food chain, because in case of food chain we know if one organism is removed, that then it will impact that more. So here the adaptability is less in case of food chain, while in case of the food web, here the adaptability and competitiveness can be improved. Now in case of food chain, we are talking about the complexity. The food chain is simple in complexity, while the food web is complex in their complexity. Apart from that, it follows a single pathway, while the food web can have multiple pathways. Now, in case of food chain, it does not represent the ecosystem complexity, while the food web can represent the complexity of ecosystem very well. Some other differences here are that if there is any removal of one organism from the food chain, then it will collapse the chain. While in this one, if one organism is removed, then it will have less impact, because here multiple pathways are present, that I also discussed earlier. Now, in case of food chain, here we can see that it is seen in simple ecosystem, while in this case, in case of food chain, it can be seen in most ecosystems and it show all the biodiversity. Biodiversity means that different types of biodiversity, or we can say different type of diversity is present in our world, that is known as biodiversity. The example of food chain and food web are also present here. In this one, the grass is eaten by rabbit, then rabbit is eaten by snake, and then snake is eaten by the eagle. That condition is known as only food chain. Now, in case of the food web, suppose grass can be eaten by grasshopper, the same grass can be eaten by deer and also rabbit. Later on, then rabbit can be eaten by snake. That same rabbit can be eaten by the lion, by the fox, or by the tiger. So here we see that here interconnected food chains are present. That's why we use the term here as web. Food web. So these were some basic differences between food chain and food web. Let's have a look on the image. From this image only, it will be more clear to you that the first image is showing about the food chain. You can see a straight pathway is present in this one. A simple pathway is present, and here complexity is not that much as compared to the food web. So in this one we can see grass is eaten by grasshopper, then the same grasshopper can be eaten by rat or frog, and here we can see it is eaten by snake, and later on snake is eaten by the eagle. It is representing food chain, while in this one we can see the different or interconnected food chains are present here. Here interconnected food chain are present. Now, suppose that grass is eaten by mouse, then the same mouse is eaten by owl, and the owl it can here owl is not eaten by any other organism. Now the same grass can be eaten by rabbit. Later on, rabbit can be eaten by the fox. Similarly, that mouse who was eating the grass can be eaten by the same fox here. Similarly, another one example is here that grass can be eaten by grasshopper. Then this grasshopper can be eaten by frog, and the same grasshopper can also be eaten by a bird. Similarly, the bird can be eaten by snake, and then frog also can be eaten by the snake. Later on, this snake can be eaten by the hawk. So in this one, we can see that different food chains are present. It is showing here interconnection. That's why we use the term here food web. So these were some basic difference between food chain and food